Welcome
to the Legacy
Podcast.
Hello to everyone. This is part 2 of Experiencing Hurt. On the last podcast, I was just on the brink of discussing how selfish I was. And I need to add some context, right? Because things can be misunderstood, right? So when I speak to selfish, and when I speak to being a knucklehead, etc., I'm talking about in the sense of my perspective versus my wife's perspective. All right, so yes, I was thinking about Sam. How was Sam feeling in that moment? I was not thinking about how I was impacting the environment. I wasn't thinking about how my behavior was causing a detrimental and a hostile environment. But I was thinking about how I was raised as far as my mother going to 2 and 3 jobs, coming from those jobs, cooking, cleaning, just being the best woman that she could be and the best mother that she could be for us. And so it was a comparison factor there. And so my ideal of doing the complete opposite of what my mother what I felt like she had to endure, was at least be the breadwinner and at least not have the woman to be the breadwinner and have to do all these other things on top of that. I felt like if I could just, financially provide, then what else is there to complain about? Of course, like my wife stated, the physical was there, right? Correct? Chime in anytime?
Correct.
Okay. So I just want the people to know that I'm not talking about my...
Speak your piece.
I'm not talking about myself. So, yes, on the flip side of it, men hurt too, but we just hurt in a different way. We express it a different way. And so that was my mindset at that particular time. And when I was in a dark place, I'm speaking to all the relationships that I knew were not a part of my life per se at that time. I had communications, but I didn't have the relationships that I needed to be a great husband and a great father. I had mentors per se, but I didn't have those examples, to lean on or to call up as far as guidance, advice in my marriage. Did I need that? Did I feel like I needed that? I did not. But I'm glad that my wife stuck it out, and I'm glad that she was a praying woman and that she did reach out to various women in her life that provided guidance, etc. When I was cutting up. I was cutting up. I can't deny it, right? I can't deny it, right? But to think back on my reason why I was cutting up, it's just Sam wanted to do what he wanted to do. It's no excuses for what I did, what I engaged in. But I can say that my ideal, my concepts were very, very unstable. My concepts and idea of what a marriage should be, it was just messed up. It was just messed up, right? And again, I will say it was because of Sam. It wasn't because of anybody else. It was because of my selfish ways. And again, I'll say to anybody that is seeking a relationship, that's the first thing that you need to look for in a man. make sure he's selfless. Test the selflessness of this man, because that's going to be the foundation of any successful marriage. If the man or the woman is selfless, right? They have to be able and willing to be selfless. They have to be willing to not even consider a sacrifice a sacrifice. It doesn't really exist in marriage, does it? I mean, some people can say it does, but for us, it doesn't. That's a great word to express in marriage, because really it's just being willing.
Right, willing to compromise, willing to agree to disagree, but for the better good of things working for the two people in the relationship.
Yeah.
I know for us, it took a great deal of trying to be understanding, I think, but later on in our marriage, we just kind of learned that the most important thing was, like we said, for us, we can't be anything other than us and what we find truthful in our lives. God is our foundation. We choose to keep him at the center, but like he said, there were times where God was not kept at the center. So one thing that God taught me early on when we were experiencing these hardships in our marriage was that I couldn't expect you to do things that you weren't even willing to do for God. I couldn't expect you to spend quality time with me and you weren't spending that time with him. I couldn't expect you to get in a safe place with me when you wouldn't be in that safe place with God. And that was a very real big thing for me. It was times where I just had completely no peace because I was so worried about you, what you were doing, what you were thinking. Everything was just Sam. And I would look back on, I could have spent this time doing this, or I could have spent that time doing that. But it wasn't until I got in that place with God and I was just like, I know you're trying to show me and I'm missing it day by day. I know that it's right in my face, but I'm not going to have any peace until I stop doing certain things. And those certain things was worried about what you were doing every waking moment of our lives. And that's just being honest and real. Women, we sometimes do not want to be real about those things, that you're making this person your God by making everything about them and forgetting about you. I forgot a lot about me in our marriage, especially too, since yes, I went to school, I went to college, I got degrees, things like that, but at the same time, we both agreed that I would be a stay-at-home mother, which in our marriage seemed like I was just failing at that. I wasn't good at that. It became a thing where it wasn't just about the house. It just felt like, in my eyes, me concerning you, that I was not a good wife. I wasn't a good mom. I started not to feel good about myself. I started to feel like I could not accomplish things. I felt feelings that normally I would never think or feel about myself. And that definitely was not a great place to be, not for my personality. I know the old Aondrea, I was sensitive, but it just depended on who it was. If you were very close to me, I befriend a lot of people, I love everybody, but those the closest to me probably could be the ones that really hurt me the most. And you really hurt me in some deep places sometimes where I felt like I was not going to be able to pull myself back from. Wow. That type of hurt, that numbing, pain feeling type of hurt. At the same time, I'm remembering having certain conversations with the Lord and saying, why do women always have to make the sacrifice of being the bigger person, of overlooking things and sweeping things under the rug. But it's always two sides to a story. Yes, there are things that I could have been better at, but marriage for us, especially since, like we said in the first episode, we got to know each other backwards.
Yeah.
We had a child first and then had to get to know each other. That was a lot of adjustment.
Yes.
It was a lot of adjustment. I went through postpartum and didn't know it. Of course, when you're going through those things, you really don't know. And I remember it was right after the nurse stopped doing the visits. I slipped into this place where I can even remember my mom saying, "Me and your sister thought something was wrong with you." Well, that's because it was. And if I remember correctly, not so much just being a newlywed, I was still in school, having babies in between, having surgeries in between. It was not just a lot on my mind, but it was a lot on my body too.
Absolutely.
So that, it was a lot of things that we just really, really had to overcome. And I know it was nobody but God that just worked through those situations, because I wholeheartedly believe that even in your downfalls, even in those spaces that you were in, I still could see the real Sam in there. And I believed in the power of prayer and God changing you. Not how I saw you, not how I wanted you to change, but the person that I know God wanted me to see in you. And that's what, outside of his voice, that's what helped me to hold on to the marriage, even in a place where, and you clearly said, I'm good. I think we could work something out, with the children, but I'm good. Or going from you saying that you wanted to work the marriage out, but then, there were still other factors, other entities, in between that. And it takes a lot. And for me, this is my story. I don't consider myself being dumb according to people's standards, because like I said, I have a father that created me, that let me know how much he loved me, and said to me that you're going to go through a lot of things, but it's going to be for your good, but I'm going to get the glory out of it. And God most certainly did get the glory out of it, because 7 years later, here we are with our marriage, with 3 beautiful, healthy children.
Absolutely.
And able to talk about these hurtful things.
Absolutely. And thank God for you being consistent in my inconsistencies, right? I can just, reflect in, again, I was in a dark place. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was a young man that I considered to be full of pride, prior to us coming together, right? Consider myself to be a young man that was futuristically going to lead the pack, in a sense of, you have all these people and entities in your ear. You're the next one. You're the next big thing. You are great. And that time I didn't feel so great. I felt like, I've let the world down. I've let my family down. Here I am. People are saying that I'm great and I'm going to be this individual that's going to accomplish so many things. But here I am having a child out of wedlock. Here I am having a marriage, right? That I feel like is premature, but we're going to do what's necessary to save face, right? To an extent, but it's really God just meshing us together. Yeah. I remember our pastor, right, at that time.
Shout out to Richie A7.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible individual. he was giving us a demonstration, and he was speaking on potatoes.
Right.
And how when you put a potato in boiling water, it goes through some things. And he was actually prophesying, now that I'm thinking about it. But it goes through the heat, and that temperature is so hot and intense, right? But eventually, right, you have one potato, two potatoes, you put it in the water, it's boiling hot, right, to a temperature that you wouldn't tend to want to even engage in. But because that potato has to go through that process, right, to make mashed potatoes, right, that's what God was actually creating in our
soften, right?
Softening us up, creating that mesh where it can be inseparable lives up until this point, right, has been that process of just heat and high temperature when you wouldn't typically want to engage. But because of the 3 chord, right? He said as long as we keep that core, right, we're going to be just fine.
Right, because we can't put ourselves back together. Only he could do that.
Absolutely. And that's what he said. And that stuck with us, right? And so, but when we, or not we, when Sam I Am, right, took Jesus out of the center, that's when things started to really unravel.
I also remember saying that to the Lord. I said, God, if he's this man, I know it's not church that's going to keep him. I said, but that'll be the last straw. If this man stops attending church or service, I'm like, any and everything is just going to go. And he did.
But you know what? At that time, and I do actually thank God for the process, right? I don't thank God for, you going through the hurt. I don't thank God for, Sam having selfish ways. But I thank God for the process, because in that process, I was looking for more than church. I was looking for
absolutely
realness. It has to be more to life than just, hearing a good sermon, paying bills, dying.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to be more, right? I was looking around and seeing how, people that attend church, right, and don't hear this the wrong way, right? I'm saying this from a position of learning, right, and understanding better now. But then I didn't understand. I didn't understand how people could be attendees of church or members of church and still, engage in different things, different activities, right? And it was so contradicting, right? And now I understand that even in that, I can't compare. To each man is his own, right? Because Sam has to be Sam, right? And I had to find identity through that process.
It's about a relationship.
It's about a relationship. It has nothing to do with 4 walls. It has nothing to do with somebody being in the pulpit, preaching or speaking or teaching to you. Mm-hmm. It's about you developing your relationship with the Creator of all things. Right. And I had to find that in that dark place. I had to find that, and it wasn't until we actually transitioned, right, that I actually had a pivot, a complete pivot, when God really started to reveal and open up just doors, right, beyond comprehension.
All right, you're speaking for the transition from Virginia to Georgia.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And it's a lot in between that, right?
It is.
But that's when I really came out of that dark place. God had to corner us. Well, me, right? You were good. But he had to corner me. He had to get the man straight.
Because you're the foundation.
Because I'm the foundation. I didn't even know that at that time. I didn't know I was a foundation. I was thinking, hey, if I pay these bills, then my support, she has to handle everything else. And give or take, yes, I would clean, cook from time to time. But, the ultimate mindset was, look, she doesn't have to work, right? She doesn't have to worry about these bills, right? that may be stressing me out, but she doesn't have to stress out about it, right? And that was my mental. It was a crazy mental now that I'm thinking back on it. But how many men think like that nowadays? Even till this day, how many think like that, right?
Right.
And so that was kind of my hurt, just to look around and see how things were being impacted from my past, haunting me. It was haunting me. My mom, again, going through her situations with men, right? And me not really understanding those dynamics overall. But everybody doesn't have an example in their lives either. So that's again why I will express again and again, right? It's not about excuses. It's about you finding yourself as a man and coming out of that identity crisis that the adversary, he tends to place in every male's life, right? And so when the man comes out of that identity crisis, that's when the hurt stops for him. Seriously.
Wow. Okay.
That's when it stopped for me. And I know it can stop for every man when you come out of the identity crisis. Whether it be you chasing money, you thinking that's it. Whether it be, you are negating spiritual, emotional, and financial. If you don't have all three, right, then everything crumbles. And when I say financial, I'm actually speaking to beyond money. I'm speaking to the wealth that you're laying out for the house, the wealth that you're laying out for your spouse, your children. You're thinking about everybody but yourself. That's when you know that hurt is stopped.
Okay. Well, it seems like we are going to go into yet another episode. We're looking forward to continuing on with our story, our testimony. I don't know how many episodes that's going to take, but more than sure that you all will get something from it. Please, as you're listening to this, make sure that you subscribe, you like, and definitely share with someone, because people really get things from stories. It can help the next person. It can help the next couple, especially with how Sam was explaining, at least from a male's point of view, a male's perspective of how they feel, how they think, and how they hurt. To hear a man express things those way, that's a golden nugget, ladies, not just for men, but definitely for us. So we are looking forward to yet again chatting with you all and sharing in our lives. So peace and blessings.